What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, the official Cliffy J. And let me actually change the way that this is looking. Let's put it in full screen. I bet. Let's get it. We are here with another tier list. This will be my Big Brother Canada final jurors tier list. And I don't, how do I change some of these pictures? I don't really know how to use this stuff just yet. But I know they're not supposed to be looking like that. Let me go no crop. Yeah, okay, bet. All right, we got the pictures, nice and right. I'll probably have to paste a bigger version of everybody on the screen so it'll be easier for you guys to know everyone I'm talking about when I'm talking about them. But before I get into this ranking, I usually do these rankings based on the game they played on the season, not really them as overall players. For the list probably be a little different. This one probably wouldn't be too drastically different, but I want to also preface this by saying, like, when I'm saying the game they played, I'm talking about on paper. Like, how good is the game on paper in terms of your social ability, like how many allies you had, how respected were you, your strategic ability, like the moves you made, what strategy did you implement, and then their physical ability and the challenges, how many you won, what was the situation, the pressure, things like that. I'm taking all those into account, but it's mostly just on paper. It's not just the ability you showed. It's actually about how it worked out for you and about how good of a decision I believe that you made too. They both go into it. So I'm gonna, because when I'm going based off how good a player is, I'm only gonna go based off of how good of a decision I believe that they made. If I'm going to go for the ranking of their game they played comparison to other people's games they played, it's more on paper. So I'm gonna also go based off of how it turned out. It's gonna be both, you know. But I also have to look into their intention. Intention really does matter too. Like, did you make this move knowing it was going to be this? Did you make this move believing you would have this outcome? Did you also make this move for this reason? What was the reason you made the move? All these things matter in my rankings. So let's go ahead and get into the first player out of the tonight. I decided to do a tier list just to make it, more aesthetically pleasing, I guess I'll say. You guys can let me know if you guys prefer this or my regular style of videos, or if you guys prefer for me to have videos of everybody, like clips and stuff. I've done all those. So you guys can go through my videos that I have and let me know, or you can, just let me know in the comments because you know what your preference is. Let's get into this ranking. We got 11 final jurors to rank. And at number 11, I've got Tara. And if I'm just ranking her in comparison to other final jurors, I gotta have her in the D tier. And I would argue that actually, let's go ahead and add a row below, right? Let's call it F tier, obviously. And we're gonna put her in the F tier. And the reason that I got in the F tier in comparison to other final jurors, especially on this specific ranking, 'cause that's what this is about, is because her game was never really great. She never really played a good game, and she was voted out. So if you never really played a good game, yeah, she has good moments, of course. Like her and Tina play in the middle for a little bit. The work that her and Tina put in on Beth during Beth's HOH, her even making the final three to begin with being such a big jury threat, her winning the competition to get back in the game. It's a lot of good there, but it's also a lot of negative with, in general, her perception of the house at points wasn't great. Her relationship with Ty, which you could obviously give that more on Ty, but you also need to have a better relationship there. Her wanting to keep certain players and not being able to fulfill that. I just can't really rank Tara very highly because I will say if she wasn't voted out, especially because she was voted out like fifth, I believe. When she wasn't voted out, I do think she'd probably be 2 or 3 spots higher, but I can't have her too high on the list because she also was voted out. So yeah, gotta have her this low. And the next player that I am about to rank on this list is Kira. And I also have Kira in the F tier because she didn't do anything. Like she didn't really do anything. She had a couple allies. Like she got good with Dougie. She was cool with. I really can't. No, I'm not doing it. No, no. She didn't do anything. She had some alliance members, but she never did, or they, my fault, they, I don't want to disrespect anyone's pronouns. They, you know, didn't do anything. And when I look at the fact that they didn't do anything, literally until well, I think it was the final five HOH, might have been final four, but the final five HOH, you didn't you didn't do anything. So I can't give you credit for anything because even then, you still just listened to Dougie. You were just another one of Dougie's puppets in the game. So I can't credit you with any gameplay. But you weren't voted out. I think your social game was good enough. So I do think that they need to be a little bit higher than Tara. But if Tara wasn't voted out, I would probably have them below Tara. And the next player that I'm about to rank is Betty. And I got Betty, the final juror of Big Brother Canada 10, right here on the list. And honestly, I'm gonna bump her up to she didn't do anything either though. Like her gameplay, it's like similar to Tara's where none of the strategies they tried to pull off ever worked, but I do think she had a better idea of what she should do at points. I would probably argue that. So I'm going to have her a little bit over them. And a lot of her losing the game or not even making the final two is coming down to Josh being not the smartest guy. I'll just say that. But I also do think like keeping Kevin over I can't remember her name right now, but it was Kevin's number one ally. Keeping Kevin over her didn't really make a lot of sense. Helena, is it Helena? Yeah, no, it's Helena. No, I can't believe I just forgot her name. But yeah, keeping Kevin over her was obviously a terrible move, but in general, she never really was able to catch on to what was needed to be done other than working with her side, which she did work with her side. She also kind of was screwed over by the fact that Kevin was such an elite player and Josh was such an idiot. So I can't have her lower than two other people that didn't have great games, but I can't have her any higher because her game also was pretty bad. And at number 8, I'm gonna have someone that is really going to surprise some people because I know people in the fan base look very highly of him, and I'm gonna end up having him in the D tier. I got Tim, the final juror of season 2. And the reason that oh no, was it season 4? The final juror of season 4. That was crazy. It's clearly Netta. Come on, man. But no, final juror of season 4. I got Tim this low partly because, like, okay, hold up. I get why we would have Tim high because he had a masterful social game, great social positioning, was never really in any serious danger. He had a lot of control, especially if we're talking like mid to late game, especially post Mitch eviction, which was also a pretty lucky circumstance. But his entire mentality around competitions is exactly what I'm talking about with intention. So, like when you just look at the gameplay that he was able to pull off, the moves he was able to do, they were very impressive. Like we're just gonna go week by week. It is very impressive, but his overall mentality will never bode well for someone like him because he'll never truly be able to fly under the radar because he's honestly too active as a player and he is too good socially. And he also has just like his ability as a player is so high that his mentality with not being into the challenges, not being someone that's going to study when that's so important, especially in BB Can, it just knocks him down way lower than he probably should be for me. But his intention, his mentality, and the way that he thinks about the game, it's counterproductive because you need to have that at the end. Like competitions are important in the game of Big Brother, and that's just a fact. It's just a fact. Um, yes, let's get on to the next runner up. The next runner up, not runner up, final juror. Let's get on to the next final juror. And the next final juror on my list is Lexus. And I actually have Lexus slightly above Tim. And I know a lot of people are obviously going to disagree with that, and I fully understand. But for me, I think that for the most part, a lot of her uh social issues, I don't even know if you can call them that, or the fact that she maybe wouldn't have won a jury vote next to Bailey or something like that. It's more of the fact that, in my opinion, hot chocolate was bitter on the jury. And you could argue that, okay, what they did, it makes sense that you'd be bitter, but hot chocolate never actually had best interest in mind for Lexus or Ducky. They were clearly the ones on the bottom. And Dougie was able to, see that. Lexus rode with him on that, and they were able to flip. So I actually give them and her, because she had to be a part of the manipulation and all that, winning comps, and she also had relationships outside of hot chocolate that had to be sacrificed for hot chocolate. And it seemed like it was for a cause. And obviously, this is a race based alliance. So, of course, players are going to attempt to be loyal to it, of course. So, I'm not really going to discredit her for her early, like, I guess, not being as in the know, because the winner of the season was outside of the know for the most part, especially early. So I'm not going to really knock her for that, 'cause she actually knew more than the winner of the season, of course. So for me personally, I got to have Lexus this high when you look at her overall game. Early game, she wasn't in any danger. She was strongly aligned with big players. She had a showman. She had alliances, not alliances, but she had relationships outside of the showmans. Like her and Dougie were more in the middle in terms of they had hot chocolate and they had their alliances outside of hot chocolate. Were able to maintain that. Obviously, you made those certain moves for hot chocolate. Then, when it came time to flip, you were very masterful in your execution alongside Dougie. And the only reason that Dougie didn't take her to the end was not her fault. People can fault her and say, well, she should have been able to convince Dougie. That doesn't make sense, though, because he did it 100% for the reasons that he said he did it, which is the fact that Hot Chocolate said they wanted a person of color to win. Hot Chocolate also said they wanted a woman of color to win. So if I erase the idea of a woman of color in the final two, me being the person of color, I should be awarded the win. It's just that simple. He lost because of a bitter jury. Simple, in my opinion. It just is that clear, because you can say, okay, maybe his jury management could have been better. Yeah, I guess. But other than Victoria, he didn't really mismanage anybody. Unless you're saying that they just shouldn't have made the move that got them that deep in the game. That has to be what you're saying. But they had to make these moves because players in the game were not playing with their best interest. It's nothing you can do at that point. Only way that you can knock Lexus or Dougie, in my opinion, is by saying they should have grown better social bonds with players in hot chocolate. And I believe that that is a valid argument. Other than that, not really any real criticism I got for Lexus, other than the fact that she's not active enough. She wasn't as in the know as I would have wanted her to be early in the game. And those are valid criticisms. She also kind of just rolled with what Dougie was saying, but Dougie's a very smart player, and the plans were good plans. So why would I go against that? Why would I not? And he's my only real ally in the game. So of course I'm gonna go with that. And it worked. These are moves that were able to be pulled off. Like, yeah, I can't really not, especially with the fact that she didn't go to the final two with things that were genuinely out of her control. Because for the most part, if I'm able to recollect correctly, it was obviously mainly Kayla, Lexus, and no, Kayla, Spicy, and Avery that were talking about the woman of color. Like, obviously Lexus was in on those conversations, but I think we all can know that. I mean, I think we all clearly know that it was a hierarchy in the group. It was Spicy and Avery, and then Lexus was the third wheel to that. And then you had, I mean, and then Kayla was the third wheel to that. And then you had Lexus and Dougie at the bottom. So, they had to do what they had to do. You guys can knock Lexus if you want to. You guys can pretend like she's not a good player or pretend like she didn't play a good game. But I'm not going to do that. So I got to have Lexus here above Tim, someone that on paper, because we all know this is about on paper. On paper, probably played a better game, but his mentality is so bad that I just can't have him over anyone that I feel like had a significantly better mentality and a semblance of dominance in the game and a semblance of ability in the competitions and a semblance of social. You know what I'm saying? Like, she has things in other categories, like, to where even though he definitely had the better strategic game, he had, well, no, I can't say that actually, because your strategy was to downplay yourself as a player, which also led to a couple of different issues in the game. So I'm not gonna fully jump off that cliff, but he's definitely the better social player by far, without a doubt. But he is a better strategist, but he's definitely significantly worse in the challenges. So I can't just put him over when I also hate his mentality in the game. The next player that I'm about to rank is Derek. And I got Derek right. I guess I'm actually gonna go. This is tough. You know what? I'll actually go Derek here. Yeah, I'm gonna go Derek here because Derek, though he didn't have much actual agency outside of winning competitions, and that late game streak that him and Kayla went on was extremely impressive. He really was a huge jury threat. Probably beats everyone in the final five except for maybe Paris. So that really does matter. He didn't actually have a terrible social game. He just wasn't a great social player and he didn't have good threat management. And, his alliance not crumbled, but it definitely took a hit very early losing Jesse. So, and really from that point on, they were outplayed by Erica. Um, I forgot what the other guy's name is. Wow, I obviously talked about it in the video where I talked about Kayla. Johnny, yeah, they were also outplayed by Johnny. So it's really hard for me to have Derek too high on the list, especially when you take into account the fact that even Kayla would have cut him at the end. So he had no threat management. Everyone would have cut him. And you know what? I'm actually putting him right here, bro. I don't care, bro. I'm putting Derek right there because he did stuff, but his game was just based off of comp wins. Your social game wasn't good enough to get you further in the game past like the final 10. And your strategic game, we didn't really know how great it was because your social game wasn't good enough to be able to pull off any elaborate strategies. Because, yeah, you made the correct move sometimes with who you were nominating and who you went after, but you also didn't always even do that. So I can't even really give him much credit other than being a good competition player when I really think about it. And that's why I got to have the next player over him pretty clearly. And the next player that I am about to rank is Demetrius. And I'm going to put Demetrius right here. Uh, yeah, I'm going to put Demetrius right here. I'm gonna put Demetrius right here because his mentality is not like I really have to knock Tim for that. Because Tim played, if we just went just straight off of game, and you know what? I'll go straight off a game and I'll give Tim the leg up over that, and I'll put him here above these other players. But it's hard for me to do that when I can't. I can't, dude. I can't. I gotta have him there. Because it's just like you don't care about the things that are you get power from comps. You stay safe from comps. Comps are the most important thing in the game other than social game. Being good strategically doesn't matter. Your strategy doesn't matter if you don't have a good social game. And if you can't win comps when your threat level is naturally going to be high. But yeah, cannot talk about him again in this video. But yeah, I got to have Demetrius right here in the middle of the B tier, a little bit below Lexus. I do think he's a better player than Lexus, but when I look at his game, he was nominated week one as a newbie by a newbie and could have definitely went home, was only pulled into the Vets Alliance. Not only, but for the most part, he was pulled into that as Vets Alliance because he was so good or potentially so good in competition. So a huge stench of wow, you're only in the game because you're good at competitions or because you're projected to be good at competitions. And then late game, we see that come to fruition where him and Kevin are essentially going back and forth. Kevin's obviously having the upper hand, but he's having to do this back and forth where if he doesn't win, find a way. If he doesn't win at certain points, he goes home. And that does mean a lot to me when I'm looking at the fact that your social game wasn't insanely good. Aika was the better social and strategic player out of the two. She kind of carried them in terms of that legwork. And he's someone that had to win a bunch of comps to even make it deep in the game, to even make it to be a final juror. You could say, oh well, he's screwed over a little bit by the fact that that Kevin went on such a calm streak to where he even had to go on a calm streak because he did have Ika, he had Karen, Dylan was with them obviously at points. So I could, see where you can make that argument, but I'm not gonna make that argument because I know someone like Karen is not a good player. Her mentality was very bad in the game. Seems like she didn't really care to win. She even seemed like she wanted Demetrius and Iko to win more than herself. So I can't really laze it too much, but I also do have to give him credit for having someone like Karen that much, loyal to him and things like that. Because other than that, Ika was the one really working the social strategic game. Okay, and then the next player that I am about to rank, let me get back close to the mic. The next player that I'm about to rank is Daniel. And Daniel's the first one moving up into the A tier. I really, 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 really hate season 11. I hate season 11 so bad, dude. I really do. It's just hard for me to rank I hate Daniel too, really. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even like Daniel, bro. I was a Kuzi fan, but I was also not a fan of really anyone on the cast. I liked Kuzi. Santina, I like Santina too. Ty grew on me a little bit. Hope, I liked Hope. I like Jonathan, but literally, and I didn't really like Hope or Jonathan. They just were not bad. They were cool. They were alright. I only really liked Santina and Kuzi, but I didn't like Daniel, bro. But okay, let's go to his game because that actually is what matters. He played a really good game though. When you just look at it on paper, like he for sure, if he is a better competition competitor, he wins the game. Because I don't think he takes Ty to the end. I think he would have took Claudia, and he's such a good social player. Actually, a very probably underrated strategic player because people call him a flop. But if we just look at his ability to traverse the game, the deals he made, he's an extremely impressive player. From the very beginning, he was in a solid enough position, being cool with the girly pops, being aligned with Kuzi from very early on. We had the Shady Bunch. Um, just overall, him and Kuzi early game played a really solid kind of middle, you know, lower upper pack type game where they were good with Zach and Ty. They were good with a lot of the women in the game, and they weren't necessarily threats to anybody. And they played that really well. And eventually they were able to genuinely take control of the game in that middle portion of the game. And that was extremely impressive for them. And honestly, if it's not for Ty's comp run, they definitely do end with a winner out of that group, especially Kuzi or Daniel, of course. So I think it's a lot that needs to be given there. But when you compare him to even the other players in the alliance and Anika and Kuzi, it's just much more impressive. He's the one that got as close as he did with Ty to where the relationship was locked in, probably because he used the veto on Ty, which ended up being a really smart move to make. Now, scared money don't make none, which is probably my only gripe with Daniel, is I think he played it safe for the most part. Like, and obviously he should have let Anika nominate Ty. Like, come on, that's clear. That was your chance to genuinely win the game. Get rid of Ty, probably beat everybody else. But obviously criticism has to be made for that. And the fact that I just think that he's someone that never really took the big swing or never attempted to take the big swing when, if we're gonna be honest, you probably should have kept Dan. Probably should have kept Dan and gotten rid of Ty, or at least attempted to make that happen. You probably could have made it happen if you left him on the block. Though obviously Ty had more people that had his back and more allies. That's the reason that you leave Ty on the block and you convince players that are not working closely with Ty to vote Ty out. So then you can keep someone like Dan, who, though he's very good at competitions, he's not anywhere near as dangerous as a player as Ty, who had some social relationships and had shown some ability to be a comp beast, though he didn't show what he ended up showing. You know, I, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm not going to criticize Daniel much, and I would have, but you just when you look at his game overall, he wasn't winning. A lot of stuff didn't go right for him in that aspect, and he still made it to the final three with players that, if we're gonna be honest, probably shouldn't have taken him to the final three. Let's be real, they took him to the final three because his social game was just that good, and they liked him that much because he also was a decent jury threat. I will say I also didn't like the way that he had. I actually put him a little bit lower in the B tier because I am thinking of a lot of stuff that I didn't like about his game, but it's a lot of good. It's a lot of good. So I gotta have him this high on the list. And the next player that I'm about to rank is Ashley. And realistically, if it's not for twists, her game would probably be right here. Like, if she would have still got to the same position and then ends up just not getting to the end, probably would be right there. It's just a little bit too much what if. Like, I would have need to see her actually cut Zach. I would need to see her actually traverse the game, a little bit more actively for me to put her that high. But I think that's what she was shaping her game up for. And it's kind of clear in the way that she was talking and some of the decisions she was at least saying she was gonna make. Like, from her perspective, she wasn't gonna take Zach to the end. She would have took Peely to the end, which would have probably been a win for her. So it's kind of hard because so many twists affected her potential to play the game that she would have played, but she was always in a really solid position, especially early with the chop shop, diaper alliance, and things like that in the mid game and all that. So her being insulated, her being aligned with strong players, showmance with Zach, all is very impressive. Her late game dominance in the vetoes, 3 vetoes in a row, and she needed to win those, not because she wasn't a good social player, not because she didn't play a good strategic game, but because twists knocked out her allies one by one. I really think that to me it's clear that I have to rank her game above the others. And the only reason I'm not gonna have it in A tier is genuinely because I can't, because we don't know what would have happened, what she would have done had she had the opportunity. But from what we saw, it is very impressive. I just also do have to knock her not being able to convince Godfrey, someone that she likely loses to at the end, to take her to the end. Like, I can't really, and then she also couldn't win the final HOH. So I gotta have some criticism there for her. And the next player that I'm about to rank is Netta. And we obviously gotta have Netta in the A tier. She is certainly one of the best, final jurors in this era of Big Brother. Like, because I don't really know if they would really care. Yeah, nah, she's one of the better final jurors of this entire era of Big Brother. She is a very well-rounded social and strategic player. Like, her game is extremely impressive. She has some manipulation ability. She's very good at convincing people to do what is not even in their best interest, especially with John and players like Arlie and Adele and things like that. Like, it's a lot impressive there. My only gripe and why I'm not able to put her at the top spot on this list or even in the S tier as a final juror is her early game. She was closer towards the bottom. She wasn't on the side of the game that was actively running what was going on. And she didn't get that position until Canada's HOH, which greatly benefited her without her actually having to make the move. But if one of her allies would have won HOH, the same thing would have happened. So that's the only reason I'm going to cut her a little bit of slack and not drop her down. Oh, she was helped so much by a twist. Because she was, but realistically, the first five didn't have that much longer that they were really going to be sticking together. And that just kind of expedited the process. On top of the fact that though Netta probably gets nominated, she probably doesn't go home at any time early like that in the game, even though it's definitely possible. But overall, her end game is without a doubt the most impressive of any final juror. Like, you can say, oh well, she couldn't convince John, but she convinced John to do so much that John probably eventually was like, can't keep letting you slime me out. I'm gonna slime you out. You're gonna beat me at the end. You're gonna beat me at the end, bro. Like, come on. That's really what that comes down to. So I gotta have Netta here at number two. And at number one was never really a doubt. I've got Emmett, the final juror of season one. And I actually do believe that he is. If I were to make S tier, he'd be at the very bottom of S tier. No, actually, he'll be the top of A tier. He'll be the top of A tier because his game isn't very complex. Someone like Netta genuinely pulled off more impressive strategies, but his game is extremely consistent. Some from beginning to end, he was in a good position. Like he was a part of every dominant alliance that was actually running the game. And then, when his main dominant alliance early in the game broke up, his duo between him and Jillian were able to run the tables essentially, and they were the two biggest comp threats also. His only mistake is keeping Gary and trusting Gary so much, which you kind of can understand in the final five. At the final five, you kind of can get that. It's really just the final four where you should have made that move because he does have better compatibility and he's more likable. And he seemingly is the player that would make that move if we just look at the ability that he has versus Talia. So, I mean, Tyler. It's crazy. So yeah, I gotta have him at the top of the list. He is without a doubt the best final juror of Big Brother Canada. And that is the end of today's video, guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Push the notification bell so you can be notified every time I drop a new lit banger.